Putin drafts 160,000 men into Russian army amid critical stage in Ukraine war. A nation called to arms. In March 2025, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a decree to conscript 160,000 men into the military, the country's most extensive spring draft in 14 years. The move increased the age range to 18 to 30 following a legal change that raised the upper limit from 27. Although the Kremlin claimed this action was unrelated to the war in Ukraine, the timing strongly suggests otherwise. Analysts and critics argue that this drive responds to mounting pressure on the Russian military, which has faced heavy losses since the war began. The hidden motives: despite official statements, many believe the conscription is directly tied to Russia's efforts in Ukraine. The government insists that conscripts won't be sent to active combat zones, but this promise has been broken before. The draft follows months of reports detailing shortages in frontline troops, equipment losses, and Russia's difficulties maintaining momentum in Ukraine. The scale and urgency of this draft reflect deeper internal military struggles that the government doesn't openly admit. The human cost of war. Since the beginning of 2025, reports estimate that Russia has lost hundreds of soldiers per square kilometer gained. With over 100,000 casualties reported throughout the war, the Kremlin's need for reinforcements is undeniable. Military morgues are said to be overflowing, and many families complain they are being denied updates about their loved ones. Women like Ludmila Borsova and Yekaterina Brileva have spoken out, demanding answers about their missing husbands and sons, braving intimidation and even detention. Voices of the conscripts, ordinary Russian men, face a frightening reality. Alexei, a 27-year-old from St. Petersburg, described how the fear of being drafted has paralyzed his life. Now I live in a state of constant fear. I was going to buy a flat. My wife and I had plans. Now everything is on hold. The introduction of digital summonses means that avoiding the draft is harder than ever. The state can now deliver draft orders electronically, leaving no room to ignore or delay. Families in crisis, the conscription doesn't just affect soldiers. It shakes entire households. Wives, mothers, children, and siblings are left behind, unsure whether they'll see their loved ones again. The secrecy surrounding combat deaths and missing soldiers has led to massive public distrust. Across cities and rural villages, social media is flooded with videos of crying women, messages to government offices, and pleas for news. For many families, this is a second wave of trauma after the earlier mobilizations in 2022 and 2023. International response leaders from the EU and the US see this draft as a sign that Russia intends to prolong the war. European officials criticize Moscow for delaying peace talks, while US President Donald Trump threatened economic retaliation against countries still buying Russian oil. The international community interprets this conscription as evidence that Russia is digging in for the long haul, preparing to intensify the war rather than negotiate an end. A nation at a crossroads. As 160,000 new conscripts prepare for service, Russia finds itself at a crossroads. The country is balancing between expanding its military campaign and maintaining internal stability. Protests remain small due to strict laws, but silent resistance is growing. These young men, many of whom hope to build careers, families, or escape poverty, are now being pushed into a war whose goals are unclear to much of the public. The emotional, political, and economic price continues to rise, not just for Ukraine, but for Russia itself.